Hey guys, this is John here in Los Angeles with the Alpha Channel update for Friday, October 18th, 2024. And as always, we're going to start with Hakur Halderson's Yggdrasil deck. This is Ymnir, the Spirit of Fire. I hope he's right side up. I love that he's illustrated in all black. I was looking at some anime Nazi art of girls and stuff, and one of the guys did really good work in the black outfit with white lines. That's something I want to adopt. I saw also Quentin Hoover's work on Magic the Gathering cards, where he inked with colored ink, but what would normally be black, he did in colors. That was just genius. So if like a character had a red cape and there was a section of shadow, he inked that in really dark red, and it just looked beautiful. I really want to adopt that style of art. Cross-hatching in color would just be, that's next level. I really want to get into that. So, and that's part of why we're doing what we're doing today. Conan 249, this is a continuation of the last three. I think this is the most we've had in a row since the early Barry Smith stuff. I have massive gaps in my Conan collection because the first 200 comics of it is all catch as catch can. I wasn't buying these until the 90s when I was a kid buying comics. Here we have Red Sonja, and she is out at the edge of camp, and she catches this sneak thief assassin on the perimeter. Look at the back. X-Men, and the cover is Art Adams. I love this girl, Princess Yasmina. I love the way she's drawn. And this is the bad guy, some wizard. And then we have Sonya and Zula fighting his ape monster. And that's basically the story. So here we have Conan in his new outfit. His battle armor. Conan has been promoted to commander of the guard, or commander of the forces. He's basically like general now. And Sonya catches this guy, and Amlark and this other guy are butting in on whether or not she's going to kill him. They need to interrogate him. This issue has all the Conan background in one issue, and almost none of Conan. He's barely in it. He's a Deus Ex Machina style character. He does have some action, he does play some role. It's mostly Sonya and Zula, and Conan is as this massive figure in the background making all the decisions. And so here there's a bit of back and forth bantering between the other commanders, Amalric, and this guy, I think his name is Thessalides, the white-haired guy. And Amalric is the black-haired, bearded one. They are the other army commanders. And yeah, here's Amalric down at the bottom talking to Sonya down here. And when I say indulgent, what I mean is there's a lot of much ado about nothing. There's a lot of conversations where options are thrown about, exposition is done, and then a decision will get made. Lots of exposition, pages of exposition, and then some minor decision will be made. And usually it's a decision of weight, of necessity versus convenience. I was thinking about this earlier. The four suits in the cards, diamonds, hearts, spades, and clubs, could easily be order, chaos, love, and hate. And then you have necessity and convenience ruling over the top of those four. So here we have a lot of that. Here we have them watching these armies. They're out on the plains maneuvering, sort of like generals in the past. Napoleon on the hillsides watching the artilleries and cavalry maneuver, or Caesar versus Pompey watching their soldiers maneuver. And Conan recommends that they do not ride out there willy-nilly. This is him down here in this golden helmet. And I really like his armor in this. I am going to show off, I thought about this when I read the comic. I spent the last couple weeks coloring a bunch of Jay's art. Jay is this guy that did my tattoo. I should show off this tattoo. This is my logo you guys have probably seen lately, this axe. Jay did this whole thing for me after we got out of animation school. It's a dragon, and it goes, it's a fire dragon in the water. This is a Hosuki with a dragon's tail coming out. You guys probably can't see this. I'm just pointing at muddy colors. You guys can't see what I'm talking about at all. But I will show you Conan's armor. And a lot of the armor that he's been doing for the angels looks a lot like the stuff in this issue. And here we get a bunch of it. I can't tell you what's on these pages because I don't remember. And I haven't seen it. I just know that this is where we left off. So I'll take a look at it in a second. And so yeah, Conan is telling them not to go out there. There's a trick. They're going to do something. It's not right. Hold back. Wait. And they, Amalric and the other kings are like, nah, we're going. This helmet right here. Check out this helmet. This is a lot like what our angels wear. It's very Roman/Corinthian with a little bit of newer English knight in the visors, but the Roman curl on the back and the Roman crest. And he's got blue feathers instead of red. I think he's even got a blue cape. Oh, green cape. So yeah, he tells them don't go down there. It's not safe. They're planning something. They're plotting something. It's like Braveheart, right? They've got, and they do. They spread out this white powder, which is like a white phosphorus. And when the hooves of the horses strike it, it bursts into flame. So they don't even light it on fire. They actually just let the horses' shoes, the metal shoes, ignite the fire. And so these princes and kings are watching their army get obliterated by this wizard's trick. And meanwhile, Sonya and Zula are out in the fighting. They're trying to turn a different corner of the fighting. They're chasing some other faction. And they run across the monkey in the chariot. And he's got the wizard. He's transporting the wizard to some temple. And so they chase after him. And there's a bit of jumping and diving around. And Zula, for the last few issues, Zula is the Felix of the group. Felix, the guy with the cat with the magic bag, the Mary Poppins bag. And he can pull anything out of it. He had hydrochloric acid to melt through their chains way back when Conan first met him. He had all this stuff for a torch a couple issues ago when they were in prison. Now he's got a magic scroll in his bag. Even though Conan hates magic, Zula has the magic scroll, the grimoire, with all the answers to everything they need, the Rubik's Cube. And it has a magic spell that converts the horse, the wizard's horse, into a dragon. And what it really does is it releases the binding spell. He found this spell that releases the binding spell that the wizard had put over a dragon and this monkey demon. And so now the monkey demon and the dragon can fight back. And we get like 5 pages of back and forth between the monkey. And this is the wizard who we never see outside of his sand people mask. He's wearing it here on the chariot, if you guys can see this. But now the monkey is free to fight him, and the dragon is free to fight him, and then Zula and Sonya are jumping around on this flying chariot like T.J. Hooker on the hood of a fucking bad guy's car. Here's the winged dragon. They're fighting the dragon, they're fighting the wizard, they're fighting the monkey, and the monkey and the wizard and the dragon are all fighting them. The action never stops. Here we get Zula saving the day. Where's Conan? Where is Conan? Conan is with Princess Yasmila and the army, and they are waiting to attack. They do not want to attack when the wizard is out there doing his tricks on the battlefield. And so we have this going on, this like 6 or 8 page fight between the wizard, Zula, Sonya, the dragon, and the monkey. Conan is nowhere to be found. Like I said, he's Deus Ex Machina in this issue. In a little bit, I kind of get that Roy Thomas has chosen not to concern himself with the affairs of the generals. He didn't know or was bored of, or after 250 issues of doing intimate character work. He wasn't prepared to do a Game of Thrones battlefield tent. And so Zula throws the magic scroll at the demon and the dragon and explodes them all. The energy contained within the scroll and the dragon's biting jaws. The dragon's not supposed to be there. Sort of like crossing the streams, or if you're back in the future, go back to the past and you meet yourself or you meet your grandparents or something, and it messes up the future. So that's how they get out of that problem. And then they go looking for Conan. And the very bottom panel, we're getting into a little bit of John Buscema stuff where the bottom, you know how many panels are on this page? 3, only 7. But that's a lot of text. It's a lot of development. This is the end, right? We've only got a page left. They go down here and they're like, Conan, blah, blah, blah. We just did X, Y, Z. And he's like, can't a guy not get interrupted by his captains when he's trying to get some nookie? Get out. And Sonia down here is smiling because she got promoted to captain. That's all she cares about. Battlefield promotions is the only thing that's important to her. She just wants recognition as a warrior. Here we get the X-Men. And this, again, this amazing cover by Art Adams. So I wanted to talk a few things about this. This is a have to versus a want to comic. They made this comic because they had to, not because they wanted to. Now, there's 2 ways to look at have to versus want to. I have to do this. I have to. It's not just that I want to. I do want to, but I also have to. Neglecting it burns a hole in my spirit, in my soul. Only when I'm working on this, only when I'm making progress on what I consider to be entertainment media, whether that's 3D modeling scenes for video games, sets. I modeled the entire Mount St. Michel, which is the island fortress currently featured in the Daryl Dixon Walking Dead spinoff. I did it months ago, years ago actually at this point. I started it years ago and then continued it years after that. I have a whole video game set there, and developing that is every bit as rewarding as writing, as drawing, as coloring. All of this is incredibly rewarding to me. The 2 most rewarding parts are, well, it's hard to balance it because I'm better at writing, but I have more fun illustrating. I'm better at coloring, and I love coloring, but I have more fun writing. It's all intermixed, and sometimes it's different, you know. Some projects are more spiritually fulfilling than others. Some projects you have to abandon because they create such a. I developed a game. One of my first games that I developed when I was using Unity was called Hollywood Vampires, and it was your job during the day to scope out abandoned properties and figure out where the vampires were sleeping and then avoid them at night. And this was such a soul-crushing project. It was really sadistic in that the safest way to do this is you're basically attacking someone in their sleep. And that's how rats do things. You know what I mean? That's not Conan. That's not fair on the field of battle. But vampires, they're way more powerful than you. There's no other way to attack them. I had to abandon that game because it was so negative. Like, developing it, I stopped playing games when I started making them. But developing that game psychologically, the writing of it, the gameplay, the different tasks you'd have to do, the hideouts, like you could hide out at this monastery or at this convent or this church. There's different places you could go to get backup, to get holy water, to get stakes, construction sites you could go and get wooden stakes and shit. And I probably worked on that for about a year before I realized that it just wouldn't work. And then that game eventually became Mont Saint Michel, where the vampires are. So Mont Saint Michel is different, right? This is an island monastery. So here was part of the problem with Hollywood Vampires. Even though I tried to make it right around the just north and east of the 101 freeway where it cuts through the Cahuenga Pass. I wanted to just use that little area, but it's very hard to make a big place like Los Angeles a microcosm. You still have tons of doors, tons of buildings, tons of rooms that you have to acknowledge and either choose to develop or not develop. Some buildings you can go into, some you can't. Some backyards you can get into, some you can't. And it was so challenging that I eventually jumped on this idea of Mont Saint Michel, which actually physically looks like some of the hills in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a city of hills. And this is one hill in France that has a city, a village street on it, a medieval couple village streets, and so many buildings, like 100 and so many buildings, so many doors, only a couple hundred doors. There's a monastery, a convent, there's some dungeons. And it also has this really unique feature that the tide comes in every day and cuts the island off from the mainland. They built a road in like 2014 to 2016. So there's a road now, but you could have the road become impassable some way. You could have the tide come up higher or something like that. But the idea was the Catholic monks who run the monastery bless the ocean every night and turn it into holy water so the vampires can't escape and walk out or take a boat out. They could take a boat out, but you've got to write all these things into it so that the idea is that the vampires are trapped there overnight, and then in the daytime they go back into the dungeons. But you, as a tourist, miss the last bus to go back to the mainland, and you're trapped there overnight, and you don't have a hotel room. And so your job is to stay alive overnight and not get, taken in by the vampires, not become a vampire. So all of this stuff, whether it's writing a short story, working on comic books, have to versus want to, I have to do this. And the best thing that ever happened to me was getting a mundane civilian day job that's not in the entertainment industry. Because having to do this and going to animation school and spending 20 years working in Hollywood, for 10 years as a TV editor, and for 10 years working in fashion and color correction and, like photos and whatnot, editing photos, the editing photo part was a really good choice because that got me out of regular TV editing, which paid really well, but took a lot of time and left me creatively bankrupt and incapable of working on this stuff. While I was working in fashion, I was able to write both these novels and then work with my friend and get this comic book made. Then the culture war happened and COVID happened, and I had to get a regular job, which now I have even more creative energy to work on my stuff. It's not, creativity is kind of like energy for working out, right? You can only do so much working out or so much skating during the day. You can only play so much hockey with your friends before everyone's exhausted. And then the next day you need some time to recuperate. Writing is the same way for me. Creative work is the same way for me. And if I spend all day at work editing television shows so that they're good and they have good music beds and the graphics look good and making everything sync and match cuts and making it all smooth, making the pace flow. If I spend all day doing that, when I get home, I do not have any energy to write. I could work out, sure, because I don't have to think. I don't have to use those creative muscles. Those creative muscles are spent. Part of what happens when you sleep is your brain chemicals get flushed. When your brain is working, it builds up, sort of just like your muscles build up lactic acid, and they need to be fed, and they need to be cleansed, washed out. You need to stay hydrated so that lactic acid can wash out. Your brain goes through the same thing. The dopamine, serotonin, and neonorepinephrine, there's only 3 brain chemicals, get so cluttered up that your brain needs to sleep to flush all that clutter out of there. Burnt blood cells, basically burnt blood cells, right? Because that's where the energy comes from. So that's why you have to sleep. And the whole time I was working for Hollywood, I wasn't able to do this stuff. Not really, not at the level I wanted to. Not at the level I can right now. So have to versus want to is a big difference. It's your best effort versus acceptable effort, right? So acceptable effort is you have to. You have to meet this deadline, and they're only paying you so much, so you can't produce a gold-plated radio flyer wagon. I heard this in a sales seminar once. No one wants a gold-plated radio flyer. What does that mean? You know the little red wagons you pull your children around in the, on the street? It's like a skateboard, right? Skateboards, like comics, this is something I've learned in my old age. A skateboard is more beautiful when it's beat up and it's been ridden. I could drag one of my ridden boards in, but even they're not that ridden because this past 6 or 8 months I haven't been riding that much. But a beat up board is like a book, like a dog-eared book. You know someone loved that book and loved that story, right? So there's an element of that, live life. Like, take the comic out of the... We're still going to eventually do this. I saw someone else did Something is Killing the Children. He had a different take on it than I will. But read the comics, drink the champagne, eat the caviar. You only live once. So take the risks. Write the song, play the music, whatever art it is that you're not doing. This guy, Wayne Dyer, who was sort of a self-help guru before Tony Robbins. The self-help guru thing, if you think about this, culture didn't used to have that. We had apprenticeships, we had communities, everyone knew everyone else in the village, and a good, wholesome community had friendship and teamwork. And a lot of that gets spoiled by petty jealousies and small town ambition. But when it works really well. And when it doesn't work, you get something like the self-help industry to replace it. So Wayne Dyer was one of the early ones. He felt like Tony Robbins robbed him, but that's him not practicing what he preaches. Tony Robbins brought a different sort of perspective to it. They're both douchebags as far as I'm concerned, but they both said a lot of important things. And I'm going to quote both of them right now. Wayne Dyer said, "Don't die with your music still inside you." And that's pretty crucial. Don't be a miserable fuck because you're not willing to take the risk. You're not willing to take the creative risk to put your stuff out here. And I am going to show off today, probably right about now, I'm going to show off the armor that I've been coloring for the past few days and how close it is to this stuff that Gary Hartle did in this Conan book. No, this is not Gary Hartle. This is Mike Doherty on this one. And so I'm going to cut some of those in at the end of before the end credits. And so have to versus want to, I have to do this because I want to. I want to do it so much that I have to. And if you're at that level, you won't really phone it in, especially if you're crowdfunding comics. Now, if you're doing it on a deadline and someone's giving you a script and you don't believe in it, but you've got to get it done, well, you're going to cut some corners, and that's understandable. A good idea is the most dangerous investment. And I said I was going to give you guys a Tony Robbins quote, and I will. And this pertains to the good idea being the worst investment strategy. Good ideas are the most dangerous things you'll run across because everyone can tell a bad idea from a million miles away, right? Bad ideas are easy to say, no, we're not going to do that. A good idea, you can sink a lot of money into and then only at the end realize that there's no audience for it, that there's no market for it, that it was played out and it played itself out really quickly, like the Hollywood Vampires game that I tried to develop where you're a vampire hunter. It was a soul-crushing, heart-destroying game. It was really negative. So that's a good idea can be the worst kind of investment. And here's where the Tony Robbins, the only smart thing I heard him say in hours of audiobooks. I spent a lot of time driving, so I love audiobooks. He said, "What are you thinking about?" He said, here's these 3 points that'll help you most in life. These are the only 3 points you need to know. These are the 3 points that can solve addiction, heartache, heartbreak, suicide, depression, everything. What are you thinking about? How does it make you feel? What are you going to do about it? So if you're thinking about something really negative, you're thinking about a girl who left you, you're thinking about I didn't make it into the comic book industry, I didn't make it into writing movies or making movies or blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of things about that you may have had to compromise along the way that may have made it not worthwhile. For me, I would not compromise my characters or the values of the story that I wanted to tell. So there's no publisher on the face of the earth who would have published these stories for me. I am an absolute sociopath, and I do not shy away from collective punishment. There's a lot of that in these books. So there's a lot of violence. I did literally several violence passes to make sure there's only, as I was saying earlier, you've got these the four gods, right? Chaos, order, love, and hate. And on some level, a lot of stories are written around those. You've also got convenience and necessity and convenience. But you've also got sex and death. Right? So there's eight gates. And my books definitely, now all books, love and hate, you could say that they're all either love stories or violence, revenge stories. So like love and hate or sex and death. I think it was sex and death is the one that they really sort of pointed to. And my stories absolutely worship at the feet of the Grim Reaper and Santa Muerte. There's no romance. This is about, there's only one God, and his name is Death. And what do you say when you meet him? Can you meet him honestly? And when you meet him, is he going to promote you to an angel? That's what my stories are about. So that absolutely relates to this stuff about Tony Robbins. Don't let your music die inside you. Yeah. And there's one more bit about this that I want to bring up tonight and talk about a little bit. And that is the part where I talk about opening the books up and reading them and enjoying them and investing in it, really immersing yourself in it. Now, when I did that with this, I did that because I knew that Something Was Killing the Children was going to be a hit. I didn't buy it for myself. I bought it because I recognized myself in the book, in the concept. If that book's a hit, then all of my stuff will be a hit. That book is a hit. That's how I know my stuff is great. I made, like I said, $15,000 selling copies that I purchased for like $10, $15, $20, $50. I don't think I ever spent more than $50 on any copy of that book, and I never sold a single copy of it for less than $100. I never did less than double my money on any issue of that book, because that book worships at the feet of death. And I know that book. I know what the values are and how consistent they will be. It's very hard for writers today to be consistent because they are trying so hard not to be evil, especially white men writing in comics. We're evil all the time. Be evil all the time. That's the way you find your way to heaven. What evil are you willing to commit? If a guy tries to rob you for $1 and you have a gun and a knife and he has a pocket knife, do you kill him? Do you let him by? Do you break his nose? How evil are you? If you're evil all the time, you have the power to take that guy's life and you can let him go. You could give him $1. That's evil all the time. Evil all the time is not having to murder all you faggots and blacks and uppity Jews. Not having to put on the armbands and the uniforms. That's what's coming. If y'all keep fucking around, that's what's coming. We are evil all the time. And that means I know, being who I am, the only way to get into heaven is to be on your best behavior all the time. I am the original sinner. I get it. I am a murder hobo. I am a serial killer who I haven't killed any of you fuckers this time around. I'm on my best behavior. Y'all need to remember who you're fucking with. Guys like me are Hitler. This is where we come from. So y'all habitual line steppers, fuck around and find out. I hope Kamala wins. I hope Trump, it doesn't matter who wins. We're going to get a race war. We're going to get a race war, and you're going to see white guys just showing up with khakis and fucking polos, and you're going to know which team they're on. So that's why I can say that none of these writers have integrity, because they let their values shift with the wind. An artist can't let their art skills shift with the wind. For a writer, values are all you have. Your values are all you have. And if you're willing to say a man can be a woman and, Jews are good people, then you have no value. You can say, now it's one thing to have Sonya fight like a man. It's another thing to have all the princesses fight like dudes. They don't. 99% of the women in this book are not Sonya or Valeria or Belit. They're Princess Yasmina. And that's why these books work, and that's why your shit doesn't. because you guys make every fat chick a fucking, kung fu superhero. And that's not how discipline works. That's not how values work. Women have a place, creating a good community where the children can grow up in safety and not be attacked by savages. And, that's, y'all have lost your place. And that's why the pendulum is swinging back. And as a writer, you have to have integrity. You have to, that's why I have not, once I started writing for Marvel and they gave me their bullshit notes about our characters don't get in fights for no reason. Well, that's not how the real world works. And you guys changed the values of your wannabe world, and it's not how the real world works. Fights always happen for no reason. Every fight happens for no reason. What do you think is going on in the Middle East? Do you think there's a reason for what's going on over there? The Jews want to take people's land as a reason. That's no reason. That's no reason. It's nonsense, because the Bible says you have a deed to the land. And I don't want to get political about this stuff. I want to tell you about my comics and my books and the stuff I'm working on. And we're going to be cutting in pictures of the angels in here. So, all right, see you guys tomorrow.